Okay, I broadcast it.
Awesome. So are you gonna like talk us through and get it started, or should I just kick in whenever you tell me?
Yeah, you can click whenever it's in. I can see people are joining.
Awesome.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry.
Awesome. We'll just wait for about 5 minutes and then we'll start.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, Marshall, I'll go on mute.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Hey everyone, for all of you who have just joined, we're going to be starting the class in about 5 minutes. Just going to let more students log on, and then we'll kick this off. Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining this webinar. And welcome. Welcome to Programmatic Technology 101. Right, this is the introduction, demystification, and in my opinion, the coolest club of digital marketing. And no kidding. Right, I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe indoors. It's very important that we do that. It is also important that while we are in lockdown, that we take time to learn and upskill. And I hope I can help you with that today. Right, before we start, I'd like to quickly introduce myself and what I've done and what I do today so that you can somewhat trust and believe this voice that is going to be coming out of your laptop for the next 1.5 hours. Cool. So I grew up in 4 countries and 6 cities. My programmatic experience spans across 2 countries and 3 cities. I've worked in a total of 2 startups and 2 of the world's largest advertising firms. My experience has been across brands such as Unilever, Coca-Cola, BMW, the federal government of Australia, Mahindra, to name some that you might have heard of. I was the group head for strategy in Cadreon, the ad tech company of IPG, and the director of programmatic and performance technology for Group M. I now lead a business unit for my programmatic advertising services on my own. I'm also 27 years old, and at this point, and this is the point I'm trying to make, that this industry is very young. It is growing, and there's a lot to learn, and it's growing at a very, very fast pace. So as long as we all put our hearts and minds into this and really try to demystify everything, place all the different pieces in the right place and actually learn, the speed at which we can grow is tremendous, right? I'm just going to quickly see some of the questions that have come up. Okay. Yes, it's an audio webinar. Can all of you see the presentation? You can just answer with a Y if you can see it, and then an N if you can't see it. Okay, so are you not able to see the screen that I'm sharing? Okay, I've got a range of yeses. Vishal says no. Okay, most of you can see it. Awesome. Can all of you also hear me clearly? Okay. Okay, awesome. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the course, yeah? Sweet. Okay, let's just minimize this. All right. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to forget everything we've learned so far about digital marketing in general, about Facebook, about search. We're going to put all of that aside and sort of deep dive into this whole new world of programmatic ad technology, right? I'm sure some of us have had some level of exposure to this industry. We've heard a few words, a few acronyms, possibly a DSP. I'm sorry, a few people have raised their hands as well. Let's just see if it's all good. Okay. So if there's any questions, guys, go ahead and drop it down into the question and answer section. If not, I'm just going to keep going, yeah? Sweet. So yeah, as I was saying, this is an industry that is very separate from a lot of the other things you've learned so far, right? It is somewhat similar, but it is not exactly one piece of technology. It's not one specific platform that we're going to learn. We're going to sort of learn an entire ecosystem, how multiple parts of technology are actually going to be stacked against each other, and how it helps to fulfill the final outcome of programmatic advertising, right? So far, some of you might have had exposures to conversations about this with colleagues or friends, or read articles about it. And it might have sort of put you off with all the jargon and the complexities of it. It is not complicated. The one thing I've learned in over 5.5 to 6 years of doing this is that it's actually very simple once you clear the clutter. And this is not the kind of thing which you can learn in one session, but it's definitely the kind of thing which you can get inspired to do in one session. And that's the hope that I'm trying to get to today, is to inspire all of you to start to learn more and to pick up more about this. Any questions regarding any of the concepts we're going to talk about today, please go ahead and throw it at me. We're also going to have a solid half-an-hour question and answer session at the end of this. So if there's a range of pressing questions you have and you'd rather not sort of stop the flow, please go ahead and hold back and throw that at me at the end of the session. Yeah, cool. So to start off, we're gonna, yes, I'm gonna put this entire thing in one nutshell from a famous quote from John Wanamaker, one of my favorite advertisers. He's known to be the pioneer of marketing, is that half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half, right? And some of you might have already seen this quote. Some are saying this for the first time. It's probably putting a smile on your faces, a bit of a giggle possibly as well. But if you really think about this, this is actually the biggest issue with today. There's a question that's come up. I'm just going to quickly check that. Sure. Okay, so I'll talk a bit slower, right? So this is the biggest issue of advertising, right? Is we don't know which part of advertising is actually working. What he's trying to point towards is measurement, right? And what measurement actually is transparency. The more transparent an advertising channel can be, the stronger it is. Let's keep that in mind, right? Let's put aside everything else we've learned and just have a pen and a paper or a notebook in front of us and write a few of these things down. The more transparent a platform or the more transparent an advertising channel is, the stronger it is, right? And that is what programmatic advertising tried to do. It is to ensure that we are democratizing the entire advertising system. The huge monopolies that the likes of Facebook and Google had through their own platforms, the business manager for Facebook and the AdWords for Google, has caused a lot of questions regarding the validity of data, right? The validity of measurement. It is Facebook measuring itself, it's Google measuring itself. How do we ensure that everybody has access to all of the information in the advertising spectrum? That is what programmatic initially tried to solve, right? An open source, open auction, real-time bidding environment, right? So before we jump into any of the specificities, any of the pieces of technology that might start to confuse, that might start to arouse more questions, let's just talk about what exactly programmatic is and what it definitely isn't, right? What it's definitely not is, it's not just another tactic. I'm sure some of you would have learned from sessions on media planning, media buying, what a line item is, etc. Programmatic is definitely not one other line item that you put below Facebook and search, right? It's not one single platform. It's not a low cost play. It's not the type of buying you do when you decide, hey, let's reduce the CPMs, right? Let's try and increase the number of leads or conversions we got. This is the kind of conversations a lot of people who are not aware of programmatic end up having. It is not. So let's put that entire thing aside. It is not one platform. It's an entire ecosystem of technologies, which at the start sounds a bit complicated, which might be a bit confusing. But once the right questions have been raised and all the answers have been given, what you'll start to realize is it's actually a very beautiful setup of very important, powerful technologies sitting on top of billion-dollar algorithms that are purely designed to help advertisers do what they want to do. It is an approach, it's a strategy, it's an eloquent execution, right? So that is what programmatic is in concept. What we want to do in today's course is not just to help you demystify concepts. We also want to try and get you to be able to come to a level where you can have conversations regarding this, right? To be able to sit across a table and speak to someone who's been doing this for a while and be able to hold a strong conversation about this. But of course, that is not the end goal of any education session, right? What we want to do, and I've actually put together a 10-part course, which I've been taking across Australia and India, across multiple corporate companies for multiple students. And the aim of this at the end of the day is for you to not only be able to talk about it, it's also for you to be able to execute, implement, strategize, and sit across a veteran of the industry during an interview and prove that you are worth joining the team and kick-start your entire career in programmatic advertising. And that's the aim, right? And today is going to be a snapshot, a little trailer of what that's going to be, and to really introduce you to a lot of these concepts. Cool, so what exactly is programmatic buying, right? It is the process of executing these buys in an automated fashion. Let's remember that it's automated through a range of digital platforms with a layer of three very important things, okay? An algorithm, a data filter, and or a bespoke attribution model, okay? A lot of these terms might be a bit daunting at this point, and don't worry, it only sounds high and fancy. They're very simple concepts. The algorithm is just something that helps you fulfill your need. Your Google AdWords and your Facebook and a lot of these other digital marketing platforms also have an algorithm that's built across it. A data filter is nothing more than your way of telling the platform exactly who you want to target. Targeting is the core essence of programmatic buying, and data is how you do it. Instead of just saying, I want to place my ad in front of people who are on the sports section of Times of India, you say, I want to target anyone who's interested in sports, no matter where they are, right? And that's what a data filter does for you. And attribution is a concept that is slightly more complicated, but what it does is it helps you to understand which channel is actually helping you in the larger scheme of things. When you're planning a big media plan and you're reporting on multiple channels, how do you understand which channel deserves that attribution for that one conversion or for that 100 conversions? It is a concept that during this session, I will not be taking you through. It is slightly more complex, but it's definitely important for us to all read about and get across. Right? Cool. If there's any questions at this point, I'd like to answer them. Go ahead and type it out. If that's going to be coming up as we go forward, I'll just point that out. If not, we just move forward. I'll just give us a few seconds to type out questions. Okay, sweet. Great. So let's move forward. All right, so let's just look at the ecosystem, right? And this is a very, very simplified scenario. You're already seeing a few acronyms like DSPs and SSPs, a few concepts like buy side and sell side on this slide. Don't dig deep into what's been written here. It might confuse some of us. Let's just think about this as a purchase and a sell. It is, at the end of the day, a marketplace. This marketplace is what we call the ad exchange. And that is the central area right here, where my mouse is now circulating. Sorry, we have a question. How can we find which attribution is the best one and what are the parameters? Ravi, great question. Let's get into this. What I'd like to do, right, is to run everyone through all of the basic concepts. This is a slightly higher concept, for which I've actually done my research and put together entire documentation for it. We'll definitely answer this question, but let's hold off on this one till we're done with this presentation. Yeah, that's okay. Sweet. Okay, just to get everyone up to speed, the programmatic ecosystem basically depends on a buy and a sell, right? And we have a central area called the ad exchange. And this is where the DSP, which is the platform on which anyone who wants to buy audience sits on and works out of. And we've got the SSP, which is where all of the publishers, your Money Control, your Yahoo, your Times of India, all of these guys are sitting on the SSP saying, hey, I've got ad inventory. Why don't you bid on my inventory? And we can see who's the highest bid, right? So what happens in this area in the center is where the real-time bidding happens. It's an auction-based model. It is the place where multiple advertisers come and they bid for that one individual that they want to bid for, and the highest bid wins, right? So it's just a way to connect the pipes. Let's see what questions we have at this point. Okay, I'm going to slow down. Yes. So I have grown up in multiple countries. So this accent is a result of that. I will speak a bit slower. Thanks for pointing that out. So this is the full snapshot, right, of how the entire programmatic buying actually happens. Okay. Let's say a user clicks on a URL. The page begins to load, right? The first thing, and there's a lot of concepts that you'll see here which might start to confuse you. Don't worry, we're going to touch upon each one of them in this entire course today. But what happens is the publisher side checks to see if an ad is available. What we mean by this is, let's say you're going onto Yahoo's page and you're wanting to read about the latest news in sports, right? What happens when that page is loading is Yahoo's ad server, and that's just a technology that sits on top of Yahoo, checks if Yahoo wants to put up an ad. Many a times Yahoo itself would have an ad that it wants to put up for either itself or for some other advertiser that has partnered with Yahoo. But if there is no ad, that's when we come into the picture. The programmatic team comes into the picture. That's when the question goes to this thing called the ad exchange, which we just spoke about. It's the central area where a DSP and an SSP interacts. It's where the buying and selling happens. It's where the demand and supply interact with each other, right? This ad exchange sends what we call a bid request, right, to demand side platforms. What that means is, hey, advertisers, would you like to bid for this specific ad slot? A bid is nothing more than a certain amount of money you're willing to pay to advertise on that ad slot, on that website at that specific moment, right? So each DSP will then overlay targeting rules and data, and it will say, hey, yes, I'd like to bid 35 rupees for this specific ad slot, right? Now there'll be 3-4 different DSPs. The one with the strongest bid and the most relevant ad, right? Strongest bid and most relevant ad. That's the one that gets selected as the winning bid, okay? And then that ad gets served from what we call an advertiser's ad server. And it's exactly what it says it is. It's an ad server. It serves the ad for the advertiser, right? And immediately the ad gets populated on the web page. All of this happens in 300 milliseconds, right? 0.36 seconds. The entirety of this is happening on the back end when you open up any URL and an ad loads. The amount of time that it takes for you to look at a page, look at a web page, is the time that it takes for at least 4 to 5 different technologies working on the background, bidding against each other through algorithms to finally put that right ad in front of you. It is extremely interesting. It is extremely powerful. And as you start to unravel more and more of all of this that's happening, you start to realize there's so much more to the online web space than you actually realized. Okay, so I'm going to stop at this point and look for questions. I know that my accent might be a little difficult to understand. Trying to make it as slow as possible. Are there any questions? The experiences we what if? Okay, so Ravi, please explain this chain DSP and SSP. What exactly do you mean by a chain DSP and SSP? If your question is regarding the previous slide, this one, I'll quickly answer this. The DSP is, like I said, the platform in front of which the buying agent sits. For example, me being a campaign manager, for example, I will sit in front of the DSP and I will say, hey, this is the amount of money I'm willing to bid for a certain ad. This is the amount of money I'm willing to spend for that certain ad slot, right? And the SSP is the one that provides that ad slot for me to bid on. It's exactly like any marketplace would be. It's exactly like how a buyer would go to a seller at a shop and say, this is how much I'm willing to spend. The only thing is, at any shop or any other marketplace that you would go to, the price is fixed. Here, it's an auction-based buy. One ad slot comes for auction, multiple advertisers sit and bid for that one ad slot, right? So the price that comes out is always a lot cheaper than what the publisher would have initially been okay with selling that ad slot for. Does that answer the question? Okay. Dusan has asked for what is an ad server. How does an advertiser outbid the competition? Awesome. Exchange fails or crashes. Great questions, guys. All of these are great questions. Let's get to that. One of the questions that I see was, what is an ad server, which we'll be getting to, Bhushan. So that's something that's coming up as a separate slide itself. Pratibha has asked to explain again this algorithm. I'm not sure which algorithm you're speaking about, but if it is what we just covered earlier, being the fact that it sits on top of an algorithm, it is your optimization models. You could tell this algorithm to optimize for a lower cost per click, or for a higher number of leads, or for a lower cost per acquisition, cost per lead, so on and so forth. So these are all the different types of algorithms that are available, and there's a lot more to it. What I'd like to not do today is to jump the gun and start deep diving into a lot of these concepts, right? Because I'm sure, like I pre-assumed at the start, that a lot of you would have read a lot about these things, and it probably is confusing. But if you allow me to continue finishing this entire presentation, right, a lot of these questions might be answered. I might have put a lot of these questions at bay and put the right concepts in the right place. If post that we still have questions, we can definitely try and answer. I will still be pausing to look for questions if you have any pressing ones. Okay, let's do this current slide one more time, because a lot of the questions seem to be across this slide, which is great. Can all of you see my mouse? You can all see it, right? Okay, don't have an answer. Cool, so I'm just gonna quickly go through this again. This is when the user first clicks on a URL, right? And the page begins to load. right here. Okay, as the page loads, right, the publisher side, and the publisher being any publisher, your Times of India, your Yahoo, anyone, checks if they have an ad that they want to serve. And I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible. Does the publisher have an ad to serve? Yes, no. If it doesn't, immediately the check goes to the ad exchange. The ad exchange is where a demand side platform, the DSP, and a supply side platform, the SSP, talk to each other, right? That is this bit right here, right? So the DSPs are going to now tell the ad exchange that for this specific ad slot, for this specific request, I'm willing to bid $10, $20, $30, 50 rupees, 60 rupees, 100 rupees, right? The highest bid and the ad that has the highest relevance to that specific page, to the specific user, will win this bid, right? And that ad will then get served. That's what happens here. Okay. In this process, a few technologies have to take part. One is the ad server, both on the publisher side and the advertiser side. Another one is the DSP, the demand side platform, which is what the advertiser uses. That's what I use on a day-to-day basis. Another one is the ad exchange, which is where the DSP and the SSP, the supply side platform, which belongs to the publisher, interact with each other, right? And all of this, like I said, happens in 300 milliseconds. Again, very, very top line snapshot. I have done a lot of deep diving into this to really understand the real technology behind this. My background is from tech. So the programming, the actual codes, the way the cookies work, all of that is something that interests me a lot, but it's not something I'd like to cover in today's session because we really want to introduce everyone to the top line concepts. To really help people understand what exactly is an ad server and demystify and bust all the myths that must be behind these concepts, right? Quickly looking at the questions again. RBT, do you mean cost per click model or CPM or cost per view? Okay, great. So any bid that is placed is a CPM bid. It is not the way AdWords works, which is on a CPC. Any bid that is placed is a CPM bid. What you can, however, do is you can optimize for all of these other concepts. You can optimize for a cost per view. You can optimize for a cost per lead. You can optimize for a cost per sale. You can optimize for a cost per click specifically, anything else. But the actual purchasing currency is always a CPM bid. The entire industry works on that. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead now. We'll take another break quickly to look at questions. It'll probably be best for you to sort of follow what's being presented in front of you. And hopefully that answers some of the questions you might have at this point. All right. Okay. Cool. So quick introduction to each one of these technologies. There is tons and tons more than what is being on this slide, but this is what you will generally see. This is what will actually help you to have those day-to-day conversations. This is what will help you to probably understand the articles you're probably already reading and you're about to start reading after this as well, right? The DSP is the demand side platform, okay? It is the technology buying agent. Think of it as the interface for the advertiser, right? That we can use to purchase and manage our campaigns. If any of you have any background or exposure or training across platforms like Business Manager, Facebook, or even your AdWords, this is the counterpart to that. Okay, the way you would sit on an AdWords platform and put in your budgets, put in your ads, put in the kind of bids you want to do. You'd want to segment your keywords into separate ad groups, so on and so forth. The way you do it on Facebook, where you'd segment your audiences, your geo-targeting, all of that is what you do on a DSP. To simplify it, to shrink it, the following are the things that you can do on any DSP on the planet. Which is the mandatory requirement for a DSP to even be functional, right? One is for you to be able to input the budget you want to spend, okay? Two, the audience that you want to target. Programmatic advertising is targeting audiences. The main aim here is never to target placements. It's never to target inventories. It is primarily because you can target audiences through what we call cookie IDs and device IDs, all right? Again, I'm trying to keep this as simplified as possible. It is a place for your target audiences. So these audiences are basically data segments which you can onboard onto a DSP. So the budget that you want to spend, the bid that you want to do for these audiences, and the audiences themselves can be segmented on the DSP. More often than not, you can also host your creatives on the DSP. It is not the best practice. The best practice is always to do that through the ad server, which we'll touch upon in just a bit. But the DSP can also house the creatives, the actual ad formats. There are multiple types of ad formats, which I'm sure a lot of us are already aware of. Your IAB standard ad formats. All of them can be housed within a DSP, and you can buy your audience and your ad slots and serve your creatives through the DSP. It is also the platform where you can pull out reports for the performance of your campaigns. It is also the platform that gives you the flexibility to optimize, to change your bids, to change your bidding approach, your algorithms, where you want to place your budgets, if you want to turn off certain audiences, if you want to bring on board new data sets, new audiences, all of that optimization happens on the DSP. So really the entire circus, all of the fun happens on the DSP for someone who's working in this industry, right? The supply side platform is on the other side of things. It is not for the advertisers. In fact, in my entire career, I haven't had a need to work on an SSP before. It is what the publisher uses to tell the ad exchange that, hey, I have an inventory I want to sell, right? The main aim of an SSP, right, is to ensure that the publishers are able to gain maximum revenue from their advertising as possible, right? Before these technologies were there, a publisher had to have a whole sales team to go out there, to go to clients, go to brands and say, hey, we've got this ad slot. It's on a very, very strong positioning, on a very strong page. We have a traffic of 2 million, so on and so forth. And hence you should buy it from us. Here's the cost per 1,000 impression deal that I can put out for you. That's a very slow negotiative process. All of that gets broken because of the fact that we have an SSP and a DSP, right? So in short, simplified terms, the supply side or the sell side platform is the technology that allows publishers to utilize all of their inventory for auction, and as a result, help maximize the value of the inventory. Okay, we seem to have a question. Let's have a look at that. SSP basically done through DoubleClick. Not true. This is a common misconception. DoubleClick is, I'm glad that you're aware of this platform, DoubleClick. DoubleClick is one of the largest DSPs and SSPs. The DV360, as we call it, Display and Video 360, is the DSP that belongs to a company called DoubleClick, right? DFP, which is DoubleClick for publishers, is the SSP that belongs to the company called DoubleClick, right? DoubleClick as an entity is owned by Google, okay? And apart from DFP, the DoubleClick supply side platform, there are tons of them. Rubicon, Brightroll, to name a few. So there's a range of SSPs. It's huge. It's a huge list. I can actually send out a glossary out to all of you after this course if you're interested, or a link which really explains that to you as well. But it's a huge list of technologies that are available, all of which do the same thing, allowing the publishers to upload their inventory and maximize the revenue. All right. DoubleClick being one of the largest. So it's a good point you put across. How does an advertiser outbid the competition? Great. It's the same way any other platform like AdWords or Facebook would do, right? It is on real-time basis, right? So what you would do is you would put in, so the simplest way of doing this would be to put in a cost per impression bid, a fixed bid saying I want to, for this audience, I'm willing to spend 45 rupees, right? As a cost per 1,000 impressions. What this would do would mean that your algorithm is now tuned. Think of your algorithm as like a blind bull, right? You tell it where to go, it's going to attack it really, really hard. So if you tell it to only bid that much, 45 rupees, and at the end of the day, you do not want to spend more than 45 rupees as your cost per impression, it's only going to pick up all of those auctions and enter these auctions where it thinks 45 rupees can win, right? Which is fair. 45 rupees is a fair amount, and hence you will get as many auctions. But if you want to be competitive, you would say, hey, I want to pick an algorithm that minimizes my cost per click, because that is more of a surrogate for your end goal. Let's assume you're running a campaign to try and get as many test drives from Mahindra, right? You wouldn't want to just do a cost per impression bid. You'd want to say, I want to bid on any auction at any amount of cost per impression that eventually gives me a cost per test drive of say 100 rupees, if that's what we're going for, right? So that way you become a lot more quicker in the learning. You don't need to have as much human intervention to actually go in there and try and constantly outbid. What it allows you to do is sit back and watch the platform do that for you. Now, while this is idealistic, not every DSP kicks ass at doing this. Some DSPs don't do this very well, some do this very well, which is why this entire programmatic advertising ecosystem is important for us to understand, because it's not just one platform that does it all, like a Facebook or like a Google, right? Or like a Twitter. It's not. It is multiple platforms. There are multiple tech giants out there who are building huge platforms for us to all work on. So it's important that the large platforms are not the only ones we are trying to skew ourselves to. It's important to open up our horizon and understand there are a lot of bidding methodologies and a lot of DSPs that do certain things better than other DSPs. Okay. Okay, Hussein has asked how to get more traffic on a website. Lakshmi has asked how we can analyze if our bidding pricing is proper or not, and how can we make use of remarketing. Fantastic questions, actually, guys, all of you. I'll just quickly answer these before moving on, right? Hussein, how to get more traffic on a website. Programmatic advertising is honestly not the greatest way to get traffic on a website. While I said at the start that that programmatic is not the cheap approach, it is actually cost effective, right? So the question actually here is not how to get more traffic, because all of these platforms, your AdWords, Facebook, multiple programmatic platforms, any advertising channel can get you traffic on the website. What you want to think about is how to get the right kind of traffic on the website, right? That is the end goal. To really get people to land on the website, there's a lot of clunky ways to do it. What programmatic allows you to do is using a lot of these platforms like your DMP, which I was going to touch upon in a bit, help you to understand who the right people are for your product, right? And if you deep dive into this question and think about it from a strategic standpoint, let's pick a product like Domino's, right? It is not, or even let's take something more niche like American Express. It is not the kind of product that every single person in India should be viewing. It's not something that all of us can afford. It is not something that all of us are eligible for. So to send traffic on your website doesn't actually answer the problem. To send the right traffic is what answers the problem. Programmatic allows you to pick data points like CEOs and CFOs of companies, people who have a household income of higher than say 25 lakhs a year, right? Stuff like that, which will allow you to cut through all of the clutter and only target people who you know have the basic requirements required for the product you're trying to advertise or sell on the website, for example, right? So really, if you want to get as much traffic as possible, bid really wide, bid really medium, don't bid too high, don't bid too low, so you enter as many options as possible. Do a run of network targeting pan-India, for example, only with a demographic overlay, just targeting males, females, say 20 plus, and you will get as much traffic. But that is something any platform can do. What programmatic allows you to do is to do your, what we like to call prospecting in a smart manner, okay? So I hope that answers that question. The best way to get your right traffic on the website is using data sets, using data partnerships, using what we call second and third party data, which I will be touching upon in a bit, to really refine and prune the kind of people who you're landing on the website. Because at the end of the day, traffic doesn't solve the problem. The ones who convert, they are the ones who solve the issue, right? How can we analyze if our bidding price is proper or not? Good question. Every platform comes with an analytics interface. Okay, throughout the course, and this is the larger course that I'm sort of quickly diverging into, there's one section where I will be taking you through the actual platform to actually show you how the largest DSP that is mostly used in our country, India, actually functions, right? And where we can analyze. And in that session, you'll actually be able to see how to do this analysis. But to quickly answer your question, every single day, the platform is receiving a lot of data on whether or not your bidding price is correct, how many impressions you've lost, and what are the reasons you've lost your impressions. And predominantly what you'll see is it'll tell you 47%, for example, of the impressions that you haven't gotten is because your bidding price is not high enough. And it'll tell you what the general price of bid is. And hence you can go ahead and pick up your bid, whatever you've put, and try and increase it if that audience set that you're bidding on is very important to you. So there's a lot of strategy that comes into this. And I really do not want to confuse all of us, right, by deep diving into the kind of strategies I have put in place before across the kind of brands I've worked, before actually getting the basics right. And a lot of issues that I see, especially in our industry, in our market as well, is the fact that a lot of people who are trying to do this strategy, who are trying to actually build up programmatic practice, have not gotten the basics covered yet. And that's actually what we are trying to do here through this course of programmatic. All right. How to make use of remarketing. Cool. Can we choose the website? Sure. Cool. So a lot of this will be answered. But I think in the interest of time, I'm going to continue going on. Keep these questions with you. We'll definitely answer them right after this session is done. And in case I haven't covered a lot of this, we can cover it again. I'll stop again in about 3 slides. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So I think a lot of concepts got covered, and thanks for that. It was a very riveting question and answer session. We just finished talking about what a DSP and SSP was. Moving on to what a DMP is. This is what I'd like to call probably a level 2 or a level 3 technology in programmatic. It is not something that most people touch or play with within their first year or two in programmatic advertising. But a lot of these things that I'm covering today is something that I wish somebody told me 5 years ago when I started. It would have given me even more of a head start, right? A DMP is a data management platform. The only thing you got to remember about this, and this is a complex piece of technology, but to simplify it, the only thing that this does is it stores, organizes, and deploys first, second, and third party data, right? As simple as that. I'm sure you already have questions. How is it deploying data if it's a DMP? Are you able to buy on a DMP like you can on a DSP? If you can't do ad buying, if you can't do bidding, then how is a DMP deploying your data? What is the first party data? What is the second party data? What's the third party data? These are all fantastic questions, and these are the kind of questions we all want to have. I'm not going to answer it on this slide, but there is a slide specifically set aside to talk about this. In my own personal opinion, this is a platform that really intrigues me the most. So we will deep dive into each one of these things. You will know what the exact definitions of first, second, and third party data sets are, how a DMP enables you to understand it. Do you have to have specific skill sets like Python programming, like sequential data mining? Do you need to know all these things to use a DMP? No, you don't. Then how? How is it that the DMP allows all of us to be able to work on this without knowing actual data analytics? That's what we'll get to in about 2 slides. But just remember, a DMP exists, and it's a technology that allows us and really gives us a lot of power over the data that we have. Without a DMP, a lot of the work that I do would be pretty useless. All right. Moving forward, PMPs and PGs are 2 concepts I'm not sure if you guys have heard of much. It is the world that is outside what we're talking about so far, the open exchange, right? The real-time bidding model. It is outside that. It is your private marketplace. It's not open anymore. It is your programmatic guarantee. It's not a marketplace anymore, right? So what you're doing when you're moving from open auction to PMPs to PGs is you're moving one step further away from the open marketplace environment to more of a guaranteed deal environment. Because it's important for us to understand that at the end of the day, what programmatic advertising is doing is helping us to automate and do faster what media buying has been doing for years. And what has media buying been doing for years? It's been linking up your publishers and your advertisers for the purpose of advertising to the right person at the right price. Okay, and programmatic tries to automate that, but you can't always automate every single section of it. Some sections of a publisher's website is something that is of higher value, and you wouldn't want to put it into the Wild West that is your open exchange, open auction environment, right? As you start to get more premium inventory, the leaderboard, your masthead of Times of India, where every single person who lands is going to see, that is the most prime and premium property that will belong to a publisher, right? Those kinds of properties will only be available if you make a direct deal, right? If you make a direct deal, do you have to step out of programmatic? No, you can do it through these 2 things. Again, I'm only touching very top line. We have 2 slides specifically for this that's going to be covered in upcoming slides. But just for us to be introduced to it, it is a place where you get a higher chance of winning stronger inventory, but at a higher price, but at a more guaranteed level, right? Open exchange, private marketplace, programmatic guarantee. That's how the transition goes, okay? We'll get to that. It's a higher level concept again, not something that all of us will be working on a day-to-day basis in say our first 2 years in our programmatic careers, but it's definitely something it's good for us to know. Okay, and the last one I've listed here, and honestly one of my favorite platforms, is the ad server. Anyone who knows me, anyone who's worked with me over all of these years would know that the one thing I can never stop talking about is the ad server. And it's the one thing that a lot of advertisers today, especially in India, because programmatic is still picking up relative to other countries, right? Ad server is a technology that is not being as utilized as it should be in a lot of the current media buying, right? The ad server is a piece of technology that comes in the programmatic world that doesn't have to only limit itself to the programmatic world, okay? Because what it does is it helps you to manage, serve, and track any ad, not just a programmatic ad, any ad, a Facebook ad, a search ad, a Google display network ad, a direct buy that you've done with any publisher where the publishers put up the ad themselves, any advertisement that is done online, it allows you to be able to do one, two, or all three of the following things: manage, serve, and track. Okay, sometimes you can do all three, sometimes you can only do tracking, but at the end of the day, an ad server allows you to know a lot more about where you're investing your money than you do today, right? It's the most powerful technology that is available in the programmatic ecosystem. A lot of insights, a lot of reports, a lot of the kind of data that allows advertisers to decide where to put their money, which platform to invest advertising spends, cannot be done without the ad server. Okay, and there's a whole section I've dedicated just to talk about the ad server. Yeah, we've got a question already, which I expected actually. Could you please name some ad server names? Sure. The largest one, obviously, again, belongs to DoubleClick. They're the winners on this one as well. It's called DoubleClick Campaign Manager. Okay, it seamlessly integrates with your DoubleClick Bid Manager, or what's now called Display and Video 360, which is the DSP that belongs to DoubleClick, as I've mentioned earlier. Apart from that, powerful ad servers, two of them which I've worked on and I really enjoyed working on were Sysmic and another one called AdForm. Okay, these specific platforms are platforms I want to introduce to all of you. Like I said, each one of them have different pros, different cons, different benefits, different downfalls. And knowing that makes you a lot stronger as a programmatic advertiser than others, right? We do not have the bandwidth to go through each platform, obviously, during the session that we have today, but that is part of our larger course, which I'll introduce to you at the end of this course, end of this session today. I hope that answers your question. Okay. PMPs and PGs are part of both, actually. Great question. They are part of both. Like I said, a purchase, any sort of a purchase in the programmatic environment cannot happen without a DSP and an SSP linking itself, right, in the ad exchange. So what happens in a PMP or a PG is, instead of us going into the complete expanse of all of the available inventory, you go up to a publisher and say, hey, look, Times of India, I want to be in a private marketplace with you, so that when I bid on your inventory, there's a higher chance of me bidding on that, winning that inventory, right? So then Times of India would then put those ad inventory slots, right, onto its SSP as a private marketplace. So in comes the SSP, right? And then your DSP now enters that private marketplace through what we call a deal ID. Again, going a bit technical on this, but those are the terminologies that we want to sort of keep in the back of our heads, right? And once you enter that, instead of you being bidding against about 100, 200 advertisers for that ad slot, you bid against, say, 10 or 20, right? So economics would tell you that the price and the CPM that you pay is a lot higher because of the fact that there's fewer people who are bidding on this. And there's a floor price to this, right? The advertiser says anyone who bids less than 50 rupees will not be allowed into this private marketplace, right? It's like a very premium poker game, right? You have a buy-in, you have to at least bid 50 rupees, for example, right? But a probability tells you that the chances of you winning the inventory is a lot higher. And that's the point of a private marketplace. A programmatic guarantee is a more guaranteed approach towards this. I will deep dive into that. But to answer your question, it involves both the DSP and the SSP interacting in a different manner, in a more closed, in a more contained, controlled environment as compared to the open exchange. I hope that answers the question. Any tool to identify on which platform competitors are doing programmatic marketing? Good question, Ravi. Not entirely. These are tools that are slightly stronger for other industries. For programmatic, there is no such tool that tells you, hey, these guys are advertising on media math versus DSP versus DV360, etc. But what we tend to do is when we see, for example, if I was working for a Mahindra, right, and a Toyota ad comes up, what we can immediately do is, if you click that ad and you store the URL that the ad is taking you to, there will always be an intermediate URL, right? That URL would immediately tell you if it's a double click or if it's a media math. All of them will have a specific naming convention that is in there, which will help you to tell you which platform they are using. but honestly, a tool that specifically categorizes different brands into the DSPs they're using is not only, to my knowledge, non-existent, it's also probably non-ethical. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Great questions. Now we're going to move on to each one of these platforms and concepts, and we're going to deep dive a little bit. Again, I'm not going to go into strategy and a lot of the deeper questions like what is cookie-based targeting, what is device ID-based targeting, so on and so forth. But these are all concepts that are very, very interesting, and we will be covering across the larger course, right? Cool. Jumping onto the DSP. The demand-side platform. I think I actually explained a lot more than I expected to explain on the previous slide, but here's what it is, right? Those four names you're seeing at the bottom here, the Display and Video 360, MediaMath, Amobi, which used to be called Turn, and the Trade Desk. These are the world's largest DSPs. There are lots more, but these are the ones that generally get used by the larger organizations. These are the ones that you know for a fact are tier 1 DSPs, which means using either one of them definitely would not lose you out on access to inventory. Okay, this is a massive common misconception that I've seen across not just people who are beginning to learn this, but also veterans for some strange reason, right? Your DV360 compared to your MediaMath, compared to a Trade Desk, or compared to an Amobi does not have access to more inventory. Okay, it does not have access to a certain section of advertising that is not available in other places, right? Everything's available everywhere, right? Because your SSPs are agnostic of your DSPs. What I mean by that is you don't go up there and make an SSP partnership with the DSP. An SSP only interacts with that environment called the ad exchange, and the DSP only interacts with the environment called the ad exchange. There is no actual entity called an ad exchange. It is the environment where these two bid. It is a huge piece of technology on the back end. Probably not the best time to go about explaining that part. But the main thing to understand here is, as long as you're working on one of these 4 or 5 top DSPs, you have access to everyone. Okay, what you don't have access to, and that's what's important when it comes to picking these guys. And a large part of my career has been to understand different DSPs and to sort of bake them off against each other and figure out what the right ones are for the right clients. Okay, I've done a lot of homework in categorizing the DSPs into brands, industry verticals, campaign requirements, objectives. What each platform does not have the same of is data, is access to data. Now, when you take data and make that a distinguishing factor, on one side, you will have Display and Video 360. Okay. On the other side, you'll have MediaMath, Amobi, Trade Desk, and all of your other DSPs, right? Why are these two sort of singularized separately in this way? Is because DV360 belongs to Google. Okay, and purely because of that, on DV360, apart from all of the other data points, your third-party data providers, who I'll be touching upon in about 2 slides, apart from all of those data points, DV360 also comes with Google's own data, which, because it belongs to Google, you can't expect to have it on any other platform. And that's wonderful, right? That's great, because if you want to come onto a platform to do audience targeting, to do a bit of branding, to do to pull out a few data signals that may not be available elsewhere, DV360 is the platform to go to, right? Just a quick recap of certain audiences that you might have already come across in courses you've done on AdWords. You have your in-market audience, your affinity audience, your topical audience targeting. You'll have your custom intent targeting, your custom affinity targeting, so on and so forth. A few of these have different naming conventions on the platform, but they're the exact same. Okay. What I won't be doing right now is deep diving into what each of these mean, right? What custom intent is, what custom affinity is. These are more Google GDN concepts, though they are important at a certain stage, which again will be covered in the larger course. But it's important for us to understand that DV360 has data plus Google's data. Okay. Your MediaMath, your Amobi, your Trade Desk, all of them have access to every third-party data provider, the large ones especially. To name a quick few, Lotame, IOTA, BlueKai, so on and so forth, they will all be available on all of these platforms. All of these platforms are also extremely open towards any data partnership. All right, before I explain to you what a data partnership is and why it's important to be open for that, I think a few questions have already come in, so I'm just gonna quickly check that. Thanks, buddy. No worries, Ravi. Hi, I've done BTech in electrical engineering. Okay, Shantan, I will get back to you on this one. This is not actually what we're trying to teach here. We're not trying to actually teach programming or algorithm. We're trying to teach programmatic marketing specifically. Ravi, is it true that on DV360 the ads are shown only to those who are partnered with Google? Great question. There is no straight answer to this. What I can tell you is the ideal world and what I have learned from my experience, right? Again, something I wish someone had told me and something I wish I had asked somebody 5 years ago, like you're asking me right now. DV360 as a platform is part of the larger conglomerate, which is DoubleClick, right? Which again is owned by Google. Keeping Google separate, because obviously it's more of a parent company. If you just pick up DoubleClick, right? It has a total of three pieces of technologies that we want to understand. One is DV360, being your actual DSP, demand side platform. Another one is your DoubleClick campaign manager, which is your ad server. And the third one is your DoubleClick for publishers, which is your supply side platform, right? Now, because DV360 owns both the demand and the supply, and it's honestly the largest giant and probably the only monopolistic platform that owns a large part of the supply and a large part of the demand, when I deep dived into this, back when I was working in Australia, to check how campaigns spent and delivered on different DSPs, and in each DSP, how the impressions were dispersed across different ad exchanges, right? What ended up happening was every other platform had a uniform dispersion across your AdX, your Rubicon, your App Nexus, so on and so forth. But DV360 had about 80% delivered only on AdX. AdX is the ad exchange owned by DoubleClick. It is Google's ad exchange. Okay, it is the one that houses the GDN, the Google Display Network, that some of us are probably used to working on or hearing about, plus a lot more, right? It is the ad exchange that has all the publishers who have used DFP, DoubleClick for publishers, as the SSP of choice, right? Which means what DV360 is actually doing inherently, and obviously this is might be a bit of a conspiracy theory, but it is happening, is that it somewhat sometimes tends to skew towards spending its money and impressions on the AdX. Now, while some of us might be inflamed by this, going, "What? That's not fair," etc. Any publisher on the planet that you want your ads to be will definitely be available on the AdX, except for Yahoo, which has its own platform called Brightroll. Right? Everybody else is there on AdX, so it's not entirely an issue that DV360 does that. It's the monopolistic power it has by controlling both the demand and the supply. But also, it is not to say that you can't control this. You can go onto the platform and say, "I do not want to bid on the AdX anymore. I want to bid on every single other publisher." When you do that, you are again not losing on any of the inventory, except for Google Display Network. Every other inventory is available on all of the other ad exchanges. So if you do want to sort of do a bake-off, a competition, right, and you want to really get deep into this, you can set up two audiences, one targeting only the AdX, another one targeting all the other exchanges except for Google-owned properties in the AdX. And you will realize which one performs more, and generally you don't see much of a difference. So to answer your question simply, it is not that it only skews its spends and impressions on Google-owned platforms. It does skew it towards AdX, which is the exchange that is available on the SSP, which is larger than Google-owned platforms like GDN, right? But it is not something that you can't avoid. You can toggle the platform to work the way you want it to work. I hope that answers your question, bro. Cool. Awesome. Fantastic. So let's move on. Yeah. So where we were was that different platforms have different types of algorithms, have different types of data sets available. And I was telling you at the end that it is important that a DSP, right, is able to be open towards plugging in data partners. And what I mean by this, and I think this is where we sort of might branch into what we call the programmatic strategy, right, is when I always think about this as a ecosystem, right? Always think about this as a larger machine, not just as a person sitting in front of one screen trying to optimize one campaign in one platform called a DSP, right? What you're trying to do is to deliver the best kind of service and the best kind of campaigning for your client. So if your client needs a certain type of audience, if it's a niche client like an American Express, like a Virgin Atlantic, which is an airlines company, a very, very specific niche client like an insurance client, so on and so forth, What you want to do is to ensure that you do your research to see if there's any data partners available who provide that audience for you. Because what this platform does that other platforms don't do is it doesn't force you to use their data. Facebook forces you to use Facebook's data. So does Google's AdWords, right? The DSP never says you can only use the data that belongs to one specific entity. It says we have all of this available on our platform, but if you know a partner that is strong, who has the data sets available, who has the data mapped across what we call a digital identifier, right? A cookie or a device ID. It's probably best to write that down because we'll be bringing that up a lot. If you have a partner that does that, it is best for you to bring that data set onto our platform and use our platform, the DSP, to buy that audience. Because if you are going to spend money putting an ad in front of someone, you want to put it in front of the right person, right? You spend a lot of money on advertising, you want to know which half of advertising actually worked for you, right? The code that we saw at the start. This is what does that for you. It ensures that the amount of money you're spending is spent the right way. So it's important for a DSP to be able to be open towards plugging in data partners. Okay, so it's a singular buying platform, which we've already covered, which allows you to target, scale, and optimize. Targeting using the data sets available, scale because you have the complete extent of the entire non-Facebook, non-Twitter universe, right? Your non-walled garden universe. And you're able to optimize because you have the full flexibility to turn campaigns off, turn audiences on, bid higher, bid lower, increase budgets, decrease budgets, toggle between algorithms, change your creatives, stop advertising on certain placements, certain websites. All this is available to you. It's literally like turning switches on and off, which you will really come to empathize with, come to actually appreciate when we go through other parts of the larger course where I actually take you through the platform. And believe me, it's exciting, right? So that's the power of a DSP. Moving forward, two very important things about a DSP, which I probably want to quickly tell, which will come up in a lot of conversations. One is transparency, which I sort of covered earlier. Another one is brand safety. Okay, large advertisers like your Coca-Cola, your Unilever, these are all brands that I've worked very closely with. The main question that comes up, right, is why programmatic? Because I'm worried about the brand safety. What is brand safety? It is the level of safety that your advertising has in the environment that you're advertising in, right? You do not want your ad to be in a space where there's a tragic news, right? Or everyone is mourning over a plane crash and you put up an ad that says, hey, come buy Johnson's milk, baby powder. Makes no sense. I mean, everybody's there reading about a very sad news and you're like, hey, let's buy some powder for your baby. It's not the kind of place you want to be on. The World Wide Web is a very complex, very wide and deep space, right? You want to be able to be brand safe. So brand safety is important. How do we ensure that brand safety happens? It's because of the fact that programmatic is very, very transparent. And when you have conversations about this, and I hope that you will, I hope that you purposefully bring up conversations about programmatic to a lot of your colleagues and speak about it. Some misconceptions that you will hear is, programmatic advertising is a black box. We don't even know what's going on in there. Untrue. It is not a black box. It is in fact the most open platform. You can pull out, if you have delivered 100 impressions, you can pull out and see where every single impression has been delivered, exactly in which URL. When that level of data is accessible to you, what it allowed our industry to do is come up with technologies that allow brand safety because of the fact that every single website is accessible. So what these brand safety technologies like your Moat and your, say your IAS and your Double Verify, right? These are all platforms that do that. Just quickly digressing. What they do real quick is they will look at the content of any website and they'll categorize the website into adult, into tragic, into terrorism, into, I don't know, all sorts of categorizations. Is a huge list. And what it allows you to do is to negate those categories that you do not want to be present on. So before the bid happens, and if you recall the journey that I presented earlier, before the actual bidding happens, what this layer of intelligence does, the brand safety technology does is, it looks into that environment, looks into the website and says, hey, I've categorized this as an adult environment. My advertiser does not want me to advertise on an adult environment. I'm not going to let this bid happen. What we call this technology is the pre-bid technology, where you're doing brand safety at a pre-bid scenario. Okay, all of the large players do it at a pre-bid level. Okay, so it's important to know this. It probably raises more confusion, more questions, but to simplify it, what we want to know here is a DSP allows you to target, to scale, to optimize across an environment where you have control over every single thing that you're doing, from the budgets down to the brand safety of the environment that you're advertising on. Okay, a little bit of digressing has happened there, but I think it was a very important point to sort of put out there. Let's see what questions we have. Samir, how can any advertising restrict ad delivery on certain type of publishers' content? Okay, so I'm not sure what exactly you're referring to, but if you're referring to the fact that I mentioned that a brand safety technology, right, can restrict me from advertising on, say, a certain article on a news website that is recently talking about how many deaths have happened due to the coronavirus, right? It is definitely possible. And how we do it is by excluding that, right? What you can't do and what you shouldn't be having to do is go in there and find every single article and make an entire thing that we call a blacklist and add it to your targeting, saying, this is the list I want to blacklist out. I never want to advertise that. That is a very manual process. What brand safety tools like Moat would do is, you can, like even DV360, it already has a technology called double verify that is inbuilt into it. Okay, you can go into the platform and say, I want to exclude every single website that double verify is categorized as adult, tragic, death, drugs, violence, stuff like that. Okay, double verifies as a product. Think of it as a different platform, a different technology. What it would have done as its business model is to partner with all these websites to categorize them, and hence giving you these categories for you to either include or exclude. Okay, and because you're excluding it, your advertisement will not even enter the auction for those websites, because this restriction blocks you from having to do that. I hope that answers the question. Okay, because why do we use DV360 instead of Google Display Network? Good question, man. We get this a lot. It's a very standard question. Very simple answer to this is twofold. One is the fact that your DV360 has access to a lot more inventory than Google Display Network. I'm not sure if all of us are very clear about what the Google Display Network is, but it's a display network that has been congregated by Google. It houses a lot of Google's own platforms, right? Websites and properties that Google owns, and a lot of other advertising partners, right? So own properties and partners of Google. That is the Google Display Network, which is available through AdWords, okay? And that is all that's available through AdWords. You will not be able to advertise on, say, the full extent of Yahoo's network, right? Or any other website that is not within the Google Display Network. That is what the exchange does for you. So like I mentioned earlier, your AdX, which is spelled AD capital X, right? Which is the ad exchange that belongs to DoubleClick, which belongs to Google at the end of the day, houses the entire expense of the Google Display Network, plus all these other inventories, all these other publishers who have uploaded their inventory not on the GDN, but onto the DFP, DoubleClick for Publishers SSP. So they're available on the AdX, but they're not available on GDN. Hence, a simplified version of the answer is you get a lot more reach. So you get way more reach for a brand like, say, Unilever, or a brand like a huge FMCG brand like your Johnson & Johnson or your Coca-Cola, right? Who are dying to get reach, who have to constantly be in front of everyone because they're not selling their products online. They just want to be clear that everybody's aware of Coke when they think about a soft drink, or aware of Dove when they think about a soap, right? So to get the reach, you will not get that through GDN. You will only get that through a DSP, especially DV360, because it houses that as well, right? That's point one. Point two is, like I mentioned earlier, your Google Display Network, which sits in the platform AdWords, only has access to Google's data points. So if you want to target a certain audience group because your client specifically wants to target that audience group, if it happens to be available through what Google has provided you on GDN, fair enough, you can do it, right? But let's say it's a very specific audience, pregnant women who are in their third trimesters for a Johnson & Johnson product. They're about to give birth, they're in the third trimester. Let's advertise to them saying, hey, baby's about to come, use this product, right? You can't do that. That is not a data set that I'm very aware of is not available on AdWords. Why? Because J&J was my client. This is something that you have available on a platform like DV360. It is something that you can create for yourself. You can go and reach out to data providers like SmartTap and ZeoTap. There's a whole range of guys. You can think innovatively. You can make a partnership with Ola, with Uber, to get even more data points about where people work, their home location, affluence, etc., etc., and bring a whole new data set to your platform and target that. So more types of audience targeting capabilities, deeper audience targeting capabilities, and a way wider reach of inventory is the reason why you would do it through a DSP like DV360 and not through a platform like AdWords, where GDN sits. I hope that answers the question. Cool. Great. Awesome. So moving on, again, appreciate that there's a lot of time that's being taken. So I'm just going to quickly move on. Supply side platform. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and honestly, we shouldn't. Mostly because what I want to do today and achieve today is for all of us to be able to understand the advertising side of programmatic. The supply side exists because without that, there is no supply for us to demand, right, through our DSP. But all we want to know about the supply side platform is it is a technology that allows us to have access to the inventory that we can actually buy, access to the audience that we can actually buy. Okay, that's as much as you want to know about the supply side platform at this point of your experience and education. This guy, the data management platform, very important tool, very important platform for all of us to at least know about. Most of us in the immediate future, and I'm talking about the next couple of months, for example, may not have the luxury to be able to actually work on one of these, right? They are expensive platforms. Generally, you'll notice really large advertisers owning these platforms or working on these platforms, right? Unilever, for example, worked on what I've listed here as Adobe Audience Manager. Your really huge advertising giant Interpublic Groups works through Lotame. The startup that I work for currently also uses Lotame, so on and so forth, right? So really large players generally use a DMP. But it's essential. It's essential, and it's a skill set that if you acquire, it really would set you apart. In many of the interviews that I have taken, very few people have actually come across as having had experience or even just the knowledge to speak about this. So I think this part is important, right? What it does is it warehouses, organizes, and deploys first, second, and third-party data, okay, which we spoke about earlier. Now, don't go ahead and read the other 2 points. I'm going to quickly tell you what first, second, and third-party data is, right? How are they defined? Mostly, when you speak about these three categories of data, you won't have too much debate or arguments on first and third party. Okay, your first party data is any data that belongs to you, that you have gained through your owned properties. Okay, this is anything from phone numbers and email IDs that an advertiser or a brand has picked up because they've sold their products to them, right? It also is the cookies that they've collected on their own website. For example, Lakme India. Anyone who's landed on Lakme's website is the first party data of Lakme, right? Anyone who's purchased the Lakme product and as a result have given Lakme their email IDs and phone numbers, that list of email IDs and phone numbers belongs to Lakme. What we call email IDs, phone numbers, and names is PII, personally identifiable information. This is information that is not allowed to be leveraged for advertising. You can't use a PII to actually target someone. If you got an advertisement when you're browsing the internet that says, "Hey Samir, this is why don't you buy my product," right? That is actually a violation of multiple data ethic laws. Okay, but they exist. First party data exists. It's the data that is owned by any advertiser through their own properties, right? Their apps, their websites. Third party is when a middleman collects data from multiple sources and gives it to you at a certain price. Very simple. For example, there's a data provider in India, fast growing, and one of my favorites called ZeoTap. Right? They have partnered with multiple telecommunication companies like Vodafone, etc. And what they give us is data points that come from the kind of data these telecom companies have. Okay, the age, the gender, the kind of occupation they're in, the kind of mobile phone devices they have, a lot of the KYC information. A lot of this is bundled and given to us. No data ever comes at a person-to-person basis. You never get a certain person's name saying Kapil Shinde works in this company, etc. What it will tell you is this is the entire segment of audience, right? That can be categorized as working women, for example, who would be a great audience for a Dove shampoo, right? So in that sense, that's what a third-party data provider does. A second-party data provider and second-party data rather is where the debate usually kicks in. Okay, from people who are just starting off in this industry to people who have been doing this for many, many years, I have seen so many misconceptions. It's not even funny. I've had so many people debate this concept and come up with ludicrous declarations about it. Very, very simply, a second party data, right, is when you utilize anybody else's first party data directly. And it's as simple as that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. This is what it is. So whenever you are using anyone's first party data directly without a middleman, that is you using somebody's second party data. So I want to put a question out there for you guys, right? Let's take Facebook, right? When you are targeting audiences on Facebook, that data that you're using to target audience, is that a first, second, or third party data for you? You can go ahead and answer that on the question and answer section. I'll ask that again. What is Facebook's data when you are using it? Lakshmi says second party, Madhavi second party. Samir says first party. It's going to wait for a few more answers to come up. Anyone else want to take a shot at this? Okay, so what I see is a range of second party data as an answer and a few people calling this first party. Okay, so the answer, the simple answer to this is it is second party. Okay, and I'll explain to you why, and I'll reiterate what second party is. Second party data is when someone uses someone else's first party data. So I think that's where the confusion has come up when you thought it was first party, right, guys? It is first party if you are Facebook. Okay, because Facebook has acquired this information about everyone, because everyone has logged on to Facebook and declared it. I am this age, this is my gender, these are my interests, these are the pages I want to like, these are the comments I want to put on certain posts, these are the kind of shares and engagement that I want to do, videos I want to watch. So these are all data points and information that you have given as a user to Facebook, and hence the direct relationship between the consumer, which is us, and Facebook, which is the owner of the data. Hence, it's Facebook's first party. But when you or I log on to Facebook's advertising platform called Business Manager and advertise for a brand, such as say Mahindra or BMW, through Facebook's audience set called Automobile Enthusiasts, for example, what you are doing is you are using Facebook's first party audience, and you're leveraging that intelligence for your advertiser, correct? Nobody in the middle is selling it to you. You're buying it directly from Facebook. And hence it's a second party partnership, sorry, right? So Facebook's data is second party for you. What do you think when you log on to AdWords and you start doing keyword bidding for SEM, right? When you start buying search engine marketing keywords, when you start buying Google Display Network ads using Google's data, what do you think that is? Is that first party, second, or third party for you? Again, going to let you guys answer that. We'll give you a couple of seconds for that. Okay, well, nobody. We have Google SEM first party. Samir again, first party. Okay, no, second party. Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly jump in. It is second party. It's the same concept. It is first party for Google because Google owns that data. But when you as an advertiser are using that data for your client, you're using Google's first party data, which means for you, that is second party. When you use your own data, for example, if you are advertising, if you're Lakme India, right? Then you are retargeting, for example, to every single person who's landed on your website and browsed a certain lipstick but hasn't bought it. And you're targeting them with a certain message. That is you doing first party targeting. Very important that we understand the difference between this. Okay, first party data is when you're targeting someone because you have done the efforts to collect them. You didn't do the efforts to collect the data that you're using on AdWords. Google did. It's Google's property. It's Google's own data. You are using it because you're buying it from Google at a certain cost per click or a cost per impression, 1,000 impressions model, right? So in that sense, you're buying second party data. Let's see if there's any questions on that. Can we say remarketing is first party? Absolutely. Remarketing is specifically first party. Yes. Are you a Tamilian, sir? Yes, I am. Great question. Yes, I am. Cool. Any other questions on first party, second party, third party data yet? Okay, cool. Really glad we took some time to understand this. Samir, please explain third-party concept. Okay, think of it as a barter exchange. Think of this as your, what are the brands in India? For example, let's pick Lifestyle as the shop, right? I don't suppose they own their own brands, right? You walk in and there's a huge array of brands that are available, right? A shop that houses all of these different brands, but they give that to you in one outlet, right? So what they've done is they have partnered with these different brands and they're selling you these clothes, but actually you're buying data from those brands, right? That is somewhat an analogy for third-party data, except you don't actually get to pick the sources of the data yourself. In a real world example, in an actual advertising example, like I said, I'm going to reiterate Zeotap as a concept to you. Okay, what Zeotap has done is it has gone ahead and made partnerships with the likes of Vodafone and Idea. Okay, telecommunication providers who have their own data that is powerful in their own way, right? They will know stuff about your demographics, your age, your gender. They will know things about your location because of the fact that they provide you telecom services, right? So they can triangulate your location. They will know the kind of places you travel to very often, and hence your office location, the kind of industry you might be working in. They can determine a whole range of things about you, right? But instead of you trying to make a deal directly with Vodafone, what you can do is plug in Zeotap as a third-party data provider onto a DSP. Like I said earlier, DSP is open towards any sort of data plugging, right? Plug in Zeotap and use Zeotap segments. For example, Zeotap will have a segment called outdoor enthusiasts. We'll have a segment called working women. We'll have a segment called, say, makeup enthusiasts, right? These are all signals that Zeotap has picked up from the kind of data sources it has worked with, like your telecommunication providers in this case. And you can just deploy that audience. You'll never know whether it came from specifically Vodafone or specifically Idea. You also won't know in perfect clarity exactly what signals were used. Obviously, as a smart advertiser, as a smart programmatic advertiser, you would ask that question. And that's the first thing you'd ask. You'd ask Zeotap, why do you think this is a working woman? Why have you categorized this? And if you are happy with the way they've categorized it and the kind of signals and the answer they give you regarding how they've categorized this, then you go ahead and deploy that, right? But what you have not done in this scenario is you have not actually partnered with Vodafone. You've not actually partnered with an Idea or an Airtel, for example. What you have done is you've partnered with a middleman, which is Zeotap, and you've bought this data from Zeotap at a certain data cost. It comes at a CPM of X. Okay, so that's third party, where you don't actually interact with the source of the data. You interact with a middleman who does the blending and segmentation of the data on your behalf. Does that answer your question? Can you give examples of third-party data? Sure. So third-party data providers, again, are the largest ones are, you see some of them here actually. Lotame, another one is Bluekai, is also here. A few larger players are the likes of Axiom, IOTA. In India, Zeotap is really coming up. There's an application. There's also a network called InMobi, which also provides you data. There's a whole range of that. All of them have their own pros and cons. Instead of going into each one of that, because that's not what we're trying to do here, what I will do is empower you with the kind of approach you want to take when you want to pick a data provider. Okay, and I spent a lot of my time, especially when I was working out of Cadrian, right? And even now that I'm building up a team on my own, I spent a lot of my time sitting and drilling data providers. A lot of ad tech vendors come up to you with a huge amount of promises. What you don't want to do is believe every single thing that is told to you, right? When a data provider comes up to you and says, I have this, I'm able to tell you exactly the kind of household appliances somebody's purchasing, whether they're buying a fridge or buying an air conditioner. It sounds fun. It sounds amazing, especially if you are representing Amazon, right? If you're Amazon, you really want to know who's out there trying to purchase a fridge, because then you target them with an ad for a fridge, and you've got the perfect partnership between the ad and the user's intent or life stage, right? But what you want to do is, instead of jumping on top of this immediately, you want to ask them the questions regarding where they get this data from. And then you deep dive into that. You deep dive into how they might have twisted the signal to segment them into this category, but actually it's just somebody who's browsing, right? If somebody says, hey, I categorize anyone who browses a website for home appliances as a home appliance interest person who's interested in buying it, that is not the audience you're going for. Just because I'm reading up on home appliances does not mean I'm actually interested in buying it. It could just be that I'm interested in knowing what kind of smart applications are available for a smart home in US, which I'm personally very interested in. I'm not buying a fridge in the near future, right? But if someone comes and tells you, hey, I've got access to all of the emails, right, which a DSP called Brightroll does, okay? Just an example here. To all of the emails that Yahoo is getting, and I can tell you based on the subject line that they're getting, that this person has recently made a purchase for a refrigerator, which means it's very possible that they're about to buy more home appliances. Why don't you cross-sell your microwave oven to them, cross-sell your air conditioners to them, and build an entire campaign structure around that. See, now that sounds more of a legitimate deterministic data signal. So the way you want to, more than knowing who are the data providers, which is a simple Google and it will tell you the entire list, what you want to know is how to actually pick out the ones that you want to work with and not fall for the ones who are actually trying to sell you something that they don't really have a solid backing for. Okay, that is programmatic strategy, and I actually have a lot of this documented and built into a presentation under what I call the programmatic strategizer. Right, it is to make you guys programmatic gods, people who can actually not only deploy campaigns but can actually argue and structurize campaigns in a manner like never before. Okay, this comes from real life examples and real life challenges and actual battles and wars that I've gone through with and against clients. And I've put a lot of those secrets down into that deck. But one of those little snippets is what I just told you about how to pick a third-party data provider. Hope that answers your questions. Remo. Do we have to pay for this? Yes, yes, you do. So like I said earlier, when you buy audience on any platform, you pay a CPM for it, right? Now, let's say a general CPM to win an auction is 30 rupees, right? If you put a third-party data provider on top of it and you choose a segment, say called mothers in their third trimesters, who are towards the end of their pregnancy, right? Sorry, pregnant women in the third trimesters. The data provider themselves will tell you on the interface that for this audience, you have to pay a data CPM cost of say 20 rupees or 40 rupees, right? When you use that data to win that audience, right, you will pay the normal CPM that you have to pay to win that ad slot, which is your 30 or your 40 rupees in that scenario, plus the data cost. So the overall cost for that specific win and the specific individual, which you've targeted using a third-party data provider like a Lotame, is 30 plus 40 equals 70 rupees CPM. So you do have to pay an extra data cost for the data providers. It's generally non-negotiable, especially when you're working with the larger players like Lotame. These guys are multi-million-dollar companies who have already built the entire landscape for you. When you work with the smaller, more agile companies, you can negotiate the prices, which I actually have spent a lot of my time doing. But at the end of the day, yes, you have to pay a certain amount for the data, which is understandable. First party means advertiser has its own opt-in data to target audience. Yes, it's exactly what it is. It's your own data and it's your own opt-in data. Yes. Anyone who's opted out cannot be targeted. If you've opted out and you've been targeted, it's a violation of your data privacy. Cool. So that's what first, second, and third party data is, and that's why it's important. Now, all of this data can be housed in a DMP. And I want to just quickly move on before answering a lot of the other questions that might have come up, because I want to cover more of what a DMP does. Now that we're all extremely clear about what a first, second, and third party data sets are, what a DMP does is it allows you to take this data, put it into your warehouse, okay, the DMP, which is the storage platform, and it helps you to understand more. And I want to keep it as simple as that. Let's not deep dive into cookie matching and device IDs matching and deduplication. There's a lot of concepts. But to keep it simple and to keep it understandable, what it allows you to do is, say if I'm Domino's, I can take my entire mother load of 100,000 people who have recently purchased a pizza from me, right? They belong to me. They are my data points. Let's pick that up and understand more about them. What I will know about them is they're interested in a margarita, for example, or they're vegetarians and non-vegetarians. I might even know their gender if they are logged in users, right? I might even know the location, but I don't know if they're interested in cricket. I don't know if they really, really love reading about online RPG gaming environments, right? I wouldn't know if they're browsing certain fashion magazines, if they're very, very prone towards knowing more about the environment, they're travelers, they're music enthusiasts. I won't know these things, because how can Domino's possibly know it? They don't sit in any of these industry verticals. How you can know this is by taking your first party audience, right? Your 100,000 purchasers, and feeding it into the DMP, the data management platform, and asking the DMP a simple question. Of these 100,000 people, what is the index across all of your third-party data segments, right? What are they most inclined towards doing? I want to take these 100 people as one set and map them against every other data set available, so that I know that the ones that they're overlapping the most against are the ones that they are mostly interested in. For example, I could immediately understand that all my purchasers, a big chunk of them, 80% of them, are interested in the following 5 things: online gaming, specific interests in high elite fashion, love traveling, and under traveling loves adventure sports, and in terms of music, they love jazz, blues, and heavy metal. For example, I can know to this level of detail. Now that I know this, all of my prospecting campaigns, all of my AdWords campaigns, my Facebook campaigns, even my television campaigns, right? All of my advertising, my messaging can be made according to these interests. Because now we know that not only are our customers interested in our product, not only are the people of this age group interested in fast food like pizzas and burgers, the ones who are actually purchasing Domino's specifically seem to, for some reason, love jazz and blues music, and for some reason, really like adventure travel. Right, so let's put a creative that has an adventure travel backing setting to it, and a product placement for a Domino's. Let's target adventure travel enthusiasts across platforms, across your GDN, across Facebook, across all your DSPs, so on and so forth, right? So that when, like what was answered earlier, when somebody had asked about sending traffic to the website, what you're doing here in an intelligent manner is sending the right type of traffic. We're not just spraying and praying, as they call it. You're sending the right type of traffic because you've actually analyzed your own data first. You've understood who your audience is, and then you're doing your targeting, right? So audience inciting and augmentation, which is the last point over there, is very important, which you can do by using relevant seed audiences. Okay, so it's a platform, and this is me simplifying it on a whole other level, right? This is just one or two of the powers and efficacies that a platform like a DMP gives you, right? But when you know how to use a DMP correctly, what you stop being is just a campaign manager or a person who executes campaigns for a client. You start being a consultant, the client. You start being someone who can go to the client and either validate what they are telling you. A client or a brand will always tell you, hey, these are my 4 target audiences. I want to target these 4 guys: music enthusiasts, adventure travel enthusiasts, makeup junkies, and working women. And you can go up to them and say, hey, you're right, 3 of them are correct, but the last one, not correct. Look at the data that I have. You should target these 2 new ones. That way, you not only validate them, you also debate with them. And at the end of the day, you become a consultant, someone who they can consider being of a higher level intelligence, of a higher level of service, as opposed to somebody that says, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I'm going to activate these audiences as you demand and command, right? So that's what a DMP does for you. It gives you access to data like no other platform can possibly do. Okay, again, I've made it very conceptual, haven't deep dived into it. I want to. At the end of the day, knowing all of this may not land you a job tomorrow. It may not land you a fruitful career tomorrow. But programmatic as a concept takes up to, say, a month and a half. I've charted 10 full sessions to ensure that you not only know the concepts and you not only know the platforms, you also know how to actually run it, how to strategize it, how to present it, how to sell it, how not to sell it, what you should never say, what you should always say. Stuff like that is covered in the larger course, right? But I hope this is sort of giving you an opening into what a DMP is. Quickly looking at the questions. Cool, couple, go for it. Thanks for that. Any bid simulator for cost estimation when we got third-party at the platform? Samir, I'm not sure if I understand your question. Do you want to sort of rephrase that? What do you mean by that? Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and type that out again, and we'll come back to that in a bit, okay? Cool. Moving on. The ad server is the platform that enables the management, serving, and tracking of your ad, okay? Like I said earlier, it is the platform that actually allows you to understand which channel performs better for you. This is a very deep subject. There's a lot of debates on this, a lot of points of view on this, but what I would like all of you who are on this course right now to take back with you is the ad server allows you to have one source of truth. right? It is the platform that will tell you how many leads came from Facebook, how many impressions were delivered on GDN, how many conversions happened to DV360, and it will tell you that all deduplicated, right? So if a conversion happened on DV360, it's not going to take that and tell you that it happened on Facebook. So that way it's one source of truth, and it also demystifies this thing called a path to conversion. It will show you that a conversion happened after an ad came from Facebook, and then the user went and searched for the relevant concept, clicked the search ad, landed on the website, actually didn't convert, dropped out, saw a programmatic display ad, clicked it, landed on the website, and then converted. Okay, it shows you the entire thing. If I quickly move on to what I have as my appendix, right, I can show that to you real quick. There, this bit. So it will show you this entire user conversion path, and this would be very interesting for some of us, where it will literally tell you, apart from how a platform will tell you that a GDN gave you one conversion, search gave you one conversion, it will tell you that the same one conversion happened because of one impression here, maybe a click here, another click over here, an impression over here, and finally a Google search and a click and then a conversion. It will tell you this entire thing. How it does it, why it does it, and how we're supposed to use this for our good is something that we will cover in later sessions. Okay, but it's important to know that an ad server is a platform where you can upload your ads, serve your ads, and then track them, see where they're going, who's looking at your ad, who's clicking it, who's not clicking it, so on and so forth. It's an ad management technology. Okay. Moving real quick, we've already spoken about the open exchange. I'll quickly touch upon the private marketplace and programmatic guaranteed. The private marketplace is exactly like the open exchange, where you can bid on any inventory on any user, except within the inventories that you have designed in that private marketplace. It's invitation only. You can only be allowed into this marketplace if the owner of the marketplace, such as a Yahoo or a Times of India or a Money Control, allows you to enter, which means only 10 or 20 people will be bidding on an inventory. Hence, more expensive, right? Less scale, but definitely better access. Okay. A programmatic guarantee is the same thing, except you don't get to bid. It is pre-negotiated. You make a deal with the publisher. You say, hey, I want to deliver this many impressions. I want this much reach and hence this much frequency. I'm willing to spend this much. And what's the CPM that you're trying to tell me that your inventory is worth? Let's negotiate it and then let's lock it, right? This is what happens offline anyway. Off programmatic anyway. But if you bring it onto programmatic as a PG, programmatic guaranteed concept, what you get is slightly more control, right? You don't have to depend on the publisher to give you the reports. You can create the reports yourself, right? You get access to how many impressions are actually being delivered. More often than not, when a publisher says they've delivered 10 million impressions, they've actually not, right? How can you be sure that they've actually delivered every impression that they have promised you through buying them through a programmatic guaranteed deal? Okay, they will be the most expensive because it's a pre-negotiated deal. There is no economics of scale involving here. There's no demand supply involving here. Hence limited scale and limited optimization ability, but it is guaranteed. It's a guaranteed access. It is the kind of approach you will take if you want to do a large reach-based buy. Okay, so that's PG deals. And what I'm going to quickly show you is what's coming up next in upcoming sessions. A little sneak peek. It's a lot more than what's going to come up on this slide. The client agency trading desk setup. What is the role of the client? What is the role of the agency? If you are going to build up an entire career in programmatic advertising, you'll be working in this thing called a trading desk. How will these three entities influence each other? What is the planning process? What is the execution process, right? How will the trading desk get set up? How is this environment set up? What do you need to know? What are the best practices as a programmatic advertiser, as a campaign manager? What is the best practices you have to put in place before you can actually say, hey, I'm running an effective programmatic campaign, right? Pricing and measurement. We covered a bit of this, but it's a very, very important. Different types of pricing models, standard measurement technologies, methodologies. What kind of measurements can you actually do? The sky is the limit. Why is the sky the limit? Why not go with standard measurements like leads and conversions? Why do you want to do more interesting measurements like time spent on the website, the amount of scrolling a user has done? How do you do it? What is the technology that allows you to do it? What is the skill set you need to have to be able to do it? I'll cover all of that there. The actual flow of a programmatic buying process. A bit of that has been covered today, but the larger expanse of the technologies that are playing into each one, how each technology actually opens up and allows its role to play a part in the larger scheme of things, right? And how to actually compartmentalize your thoughts so that you know which part of programmatic you want to take a part in, which place you want to build your career in, and then you can sort of build your skill sets in that direction, right? And finally, the shiny toy, data. What on earth is this? We talked about first, second, and third, but exactly who are the bigger players in this? What is the massive inaccuracies? We didn't speak about that. What is the inaccuracies of mining, of analysis, of utilization? What are the largest mistakes I have seen personally that a lot of huge advertisers and agencies make today? Right? People who call themselves industry experts, what are the mistakes that they're making? What are the kind of data sources available? And how is data actually positioned in programmatic marketing? It doesn't control you. How do you control data? Right? Stuff like this, platform exposure, how to strategize. I'll be providing certain presentation skills to you. Across the larger course, I'll also be giving you assignments for you, giving you case studies to actually go out there, build your own programmatic strategy, and come back to me and actually present it to me, right? We will define and discuss the way that is structured post this once the larger sign off has happened, right? But what that will do for you is not only help you to understand the concepts, it will also help you to be ready for interviews. That's what I want to provide at the end of this, to be able to sort of train you up to be able to interview successfully and land the kind of jobs you want to land. Okay, so it's a whole range, it's a whole course, and if you're serious about picking up programmatic as a career choice and as your next 5 years, right? This is the kind of course I wish somebody did for me. Thank you. Thanks for your time. It took quite some time, but I'm glad we covered as much as we did. Any questions, please feel free to shoot out at me right now. Okay, Lakshmi has asked, AdWords plays an important role for ad server for conversion. What do you mean by that? Because an ad server is just a platform that actually monitors the advertisements, right? So in the scope of AdWords, what actually happens is an ad gets placed when someone searches for a certain keyword, and if you bid on that keyword, an ad comes up. If you click on that keyword, the ad server collects you as a click, and now we know a click has happened. And that's about all there is to it, right? So mostly what happens is that same user would have seen a Facebook ad, would have seen a programmatic ad, would have even watched a YouTube video before he or she thought, hey, let's go search for this. But we don't know that. What ends up happening is we think, oh, AdWords is the reason why that person has clicked and converted, but it's not true. It's because of 3-4 different players that came in before that. So it's important to know that an ad server allows you to have this understanding that there is multi-touch in the attribution scope of things. In the path to conversion, there are multiple different players, multiple advertising that's happened before somebody converted through AdWords or through Facebook, right? So AdWords doesn't play an important role for ad server. An ad server plays an important role in the entire digital marketing ecosystem to understand where to actually invest your advertising money. Okay, Vikas asked, I missed the most of the session. Can I get the session recording? Rishant, do you want to chime in on this one? Because I'm not sure if this has been recorded. I'm a guest lecturer on this one. I'm not sure about that. We will reach out to you after this, for sure. Yeah. What is the course fee? Again, we'll reach out to you on this. In fact, guys, all of you, we have, I think we have a Facebook and a WhatsApp group where a lot of these course commercials related questions are actually answered, right? And what you get out of it. The way I've designed my programmatic course is kind of unique to anything I've seen online. And the details of that will be shared. Could you please type out with either a W or an F so that we know if you want to be a part of the Facebook group or the WhatsApp group. As you do that, I'll start to continue answering your questions. We won't understand until we do it practically. Exactly. You also want to understand until we deep dive into each platform. Right now, I hope what we've done in today's session is helped to declutter what's in your head, right? Some of you may have never heard of these things. Some I can clearly see already have a few points in your head, right? A bit of exposure into what DSP, SSPs are. The point is, a lot of this could be very confusing, very convoluted in your head. I hope that this session has helped to categorize them in the larger scheme of things, where DSP plays its role, where an ad server plays its role. But the deeper understanding, the kind of understanding that we need to have before we can actually become practical executors and build up a career on this will happen if you join the larger course. We will go step by step, and I'll hold your hands throughout a one month to 1.5 month program through which you'll actually pick up and understand. Right? Shantan has asked to please answer his question. I can't see the question though. What is Shantan's question? Samir has asked one. Okay, Sanjay says W and S. Cool. Yeah, keep going, guys. Keep adding, whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp. Yeah, so it's W or F. Okay. Samir has asked, any ready-made insights available vertical-wise, which helps in making decisions when we go for third-party advertisement. I don't know if I understand the question entirely, but if you're trying to find out what kind of insights are there when you want to do this kind of advertisements, man, the sky's the limit, Samir, honestly. It's what you want to think about is not plug and play. Like I said at the start, forget the way digital advertising has been taught to you before this, because programmatic advertising is slightly different. What we want to do here is insights into the kind of decisions you want to make when you pick your audience, because you want to advertise the right person. The right advertisements with the right measurement, which means the right DSPs and audiences with the right ad server, will be the best way to pick your programmatic strategy for your vertical, right? Whichever vertical you are in or you're thinking of going into. Okay. So if you think of it from that point of view, programmatic does not work alone. You have to have a Facebook or you have to have an AdWords also running, but without having a large programmatic buy happening simultaneously, what you lose out is the ability to actually do the reach, the branding, sending the right traffic to your website so that your remarketing on Facebook happens better, so your remarketing on AdWords happens better. And all of this is actually answers that I will deep dive and explain to you using proper multi-use frameworks that I'll give to you guys, right? Proper frameworks, proper structures that you can use to either pitch to your clients, to use during your interviews, or even use during your in your vertical if you are the brand, right? And how you can actually use that to build the best digital marketing approach in which programmatic plays a large role, right? So there's no ready-made insights. There never will be any ready-made insights when it comes to digital marketing. What there will be is best practices and strategies. Okay, Shantan's put his question down. I want to ask how this course helps me. I've done BTech in electrical. I'm now working in sales, on the sales of transformer skill. How can it help me? Shantan, this course, right, we've designed it for people who either want to use programmatic advertising through the technologies I have mentioned across the last couple of slides in this whole presentation to advertise your products. Okay, it is a course that is will also be useful to you if you want to join a company as an advertiser, as a digital marketing advertiser, or if you want to join an agency, right? If you're working in sales, how this would help you, Shantan, is to be able to understand the kind of platforms that are available for you to advertise to people so that you can get leads, and then your sales cycle can kick in, your customer service can kick in, your call centers can kick in, right? It's for you to get leads. So if you're working in sales, on the sales of transformers or cables, etc., how programmatic can help you is to figure out if you want to enable a DSP, for example. If you want to look out for data partners who can tell you the kind of target audiences who will be interested in buying a transformer, right? And then target them, right? How you can actually get your marketing team in the company that you work in to actually build up the right type of marketing portfolios, right type of audience buying, so that you get the kind of leads for you to be able to sell it, for you to be able to convert the leads to actual purchasing customers, right? But if you're not actually going to go hands-on on the platform to actually sit and run campaigns, to actually understand the technology and become a programmatic expert, this course is not going to entirely help you. This is a course specifically for programmatic advertising and not sales as a concept. Samir asks, are you offering any course? Yes, I am, which Rushant, I think, will kick in and speak about at the end of this. So guys, it's very important that all of you tell me whether it's Facebook, WhatsApp, or both that you want to be a part of, so that we can reach out to you with more material. Just as a summary, this is sum this entire course up before I hand it over to Rushant, right? Today's course might have been quite taxing on a lot of us, right? It might have been confusing. It definitely was designed to create more questions than answers, okay? So if you have a lot of questions, that's great. If you have a lot of inquisitions, that's awesome, right? The idea was to help us get exposed to things that we might have tried not to get exposed to because we think it's jargon, it's complicated, it's complex. It's not. It exists and anyone can pick it up. The idea is that now when we move on to the next session and the sessions going forward, when I speak about a DSP or a DMP, you're not surprised, you're not shocked. You know what they do. And then we can deep dive into it. Okay, so I hope I've done that for you today. And thank you a lot for joining this course and taking your time off to listen to me for however long I've been speaking constantly. I hope that this is actually useful. Rushant, over to you, man.
Good evening, guys. First of all, thank you, Marshall, for such a wonderful session.
No worries, Sean. Anytime.
Yes. So, guys, we are going to have a back-to-back webinar tomorrow for you all. We are starting with SEO in the morning at 12 noon, and then Firdaus is gonna come again at 3 o'clock for YouTube marketing, and then again in the evening we got data visualization session at 6 o'clock. So we're gonna share all the link for you guys to do the registration, and don't forget to provide your review for this session. Do share our Instagram page, be the member of our WhatsApp group, and keep yourself updated with our upcoming session. Thank you, guys. I would like to end over here.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.